Governor of college football snapback on check. Got a little black tea on check. Welcome to another marvelous episode. We got another maxed out episode for y'all today. On today's docket, we got some interesting into the news segments, and a lot of times I try to talk, about all of the Power 4 conferences and some Group of 5 conferences, but with these SEC meetings down in Destin, Florida, we've been getting a lot of news coming out of there, so we got to talk about it. On today's docket, we got Steve Sarkisian responds to a $40 million roster report. Lane Kiffin advocates for a 16-team straight season playoff. Of course he did. Greg Sankey questions NCAA affiliation. It's getting crazy. On our governor's ruling segment, we're going to do our top 9 what-ifs from the 2024 college football season. Like, have you guys ever dealt with like an alternate reality? I always look at college football as, what if these alternative things happen? How will we be evaluating the sport? What are some of those storylines if they were flipped? How would they have shaped the season? Also, on today's docket, a Louisville Cardinal breakdown. I hinted this to you yesterday. Shout out to everybody who's been pouring into this show. It's a lot going on. Shout out to Moon. He just killed his show, World of College Football. Make sure y'all tune into that. Overreaction Monday that we did on a Tuesday. Me and D Now killed that show yesterday. It's doing numbers. We have a lot of meetings going on behind the scenes with potential sponsors or influencer deals. We got a lot going on. We're so proud, and this thing only happens because of you guys, the 1%ers who love college football and watch this thing 24/7. Governor of College Football, hashtag go CFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of College Football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
defensive
on
minds. They have to be better on that side of it. It's Wednesday, May 28th, and I feel like the news we've been getting with these SEC spring meetings, and maybe this is something we have to attend next season. It's been crazy. We've been getting a lot of news. I'm so excited to talk about college football. With the news we've been getting lately, instead of this being May 28th, and almost feel like it's like July 28th and fall camp's about to start, and then all the casuals coming back on August 1st. That's truly what it feel like right now. But we got a lot of news. Let's talk about some of this, man. It's interesting to hear some of the stuff that's happening down. I don't know if they're messy intentionally, but I feel like some of these meetings are messy, and the SEC ones definitely, or the other conferences, I like to call them, has been messy. So Steve Sarkisian responds to a $40 million roster report. I just want to mention that, a lot of us have talked about reform. We've all talked about reform and a great deal of reform. And I've actually given out a structure that I think that'll work for not only for a reform as it pertains to the transfer portal, but also reform as it pertains to NIL and having this in like a cap. We need a cap. We need a salary cap. I forgot what episode that is, and I wish I had a clip to play back some of my major key points from that salary cap. The number that I came up with was 18 million, and the salary cap was only for the Power 4 programs. I think that Group of 5 schools need to operate at a different salary cap because, yesterday's paper ain't today's paper. We know that 100%. So looking at this and hearing that, I don't know if this is like just banter, if like people are just saying that, or like if people just trying to live like rent free in other people's minds. Like, that's the type of feeling I get that maybe there's some truth to this as it pertains to but $40 million is a lot of money. I think we looked at the amount of money that Ohio State spent last year, and it wasn't remotely close to 40. It just wasn't. So, Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian had dismissed reports claiming the Longhorns' 2025 roster costs between $35 and $40 million. And he labeled such figures as a little bit irresponsible. He emphasized that the report amount was based on an anonymous source. And remember, I keep talking about these anonymous sources. We have to stay away from these anonymous sources. I'm tired of hearing, anonymous SEC coach says this about that, or anonymous source says this or that. Bro, stop being scared. It's 2025. Like, people just be beefing on the internet. They ain't gonna do nothing to you in person, I promise you. So, that this was based on an anonymous source and does not reflect the actual investment in the team. Listen, Texas, Oklahoma, some of the biggest markets in college football. When you talk about revenue generating programs, Texas is one of the highest revenue generating programs in the sport. It is what it is. So if they spent 35 to 40 million and this thing is uncapped, then mind your business. They spent 35 or 40 million. They did what they felt like doing. Nobody said it, in baseball when we don't have salary caps. And George Steinbrenner back in the 90s was buying championships. Ain't nobody say nothing there, right? So we have to look at this thing as face value. If they spend 35, 40 million, it's not against the rules. They can spend however much money they want to construct their roster. Ohio State, you see an alumni coming back, boosters, everybody else putting up money like, yo, we need to win a national championship. And if you want to sit there and say they bought a national championship, well, they bought a national championship. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's always been my philosophy. You ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So I don't want to hear it. So Steve Sarkisian shut that down. And he also said that he acknowledged that while significant funds are being invested in college football programs, the specific numbers for Texas are not as high as reported. So there goes that. Steve Sarkisian, everybody coming out unchy in these days and times. I don't know what it is. Lane Kiffin advocates for a 16-team college football playoff. Told y'all that in the open. Ole Miss Lane coach, and we talked about him yesterday quite a lot, to be honest with you. And they put that elite tag. I know I don't use elite very often. They put that elite tag on and asked, was he an elite coach? Elite shall only be the top, we talk about the top 2 or 3 coaches in the sport. Is Lane Kiffin that? No. But is he in probably the next tier below that or the tier below that? Absolutely. He's a great coach. He's won a lot of games. So I can see why that conversation is started. But it is what it is in the grand scheme of things. So he proposed expanding the college football playoff to 16 teams. Why did he do that? Well, if you look at the 2024 season, Ole Miss would have been in the college football playoff with a 16-team playoff structure. So I think we'll get the 16-team playoff structure. I believe that'll happen as soon as 2026, though. After this season, I think this season will be the last year of the 12-team playoff. I think the 16-team playoff is coming in either 2026 or 2027. I believe it'll be in 2026. A lot of teams are pushing for it. We see both the Big Ten and the SEC are pushing forward those automatic qualifiers like, hey, we the big dogs of the sport. We get a lot of this TV money. We are the reason why fans are watching this. We know that the commissioners of the sport are these TV networks, and hey, they're going to get it. Whether we like it or not, they're going to get it, but I can see it. Furthermore, Lane Kiffin argues that this approach will eliminate the need for automatic bids and first-round buys, ensuring that the most deserving teams compete for the national championship. When I read this, when some people read this, they probably read it as face values, ensuring that most deserving teams compete for a national championship. If we look back at last year, and one of the things heading into the college football playoff was like, okay, well, if SMU and Ole Miss played at a neutral site, who would win? If SMU and Alabama played at a neutral site, who would win? So we started using that most deserving metric, as it pertained to resume, as it pertains to should your team make the playoff or not. And that was one of the things that Lane Kiffin argued. My pushback, and a lot of people push back to Lane Kiffin, was like, yo, if you handle business versus Kentucky, you handle business versus Florida, you're in the college football playoff. You were in control of your own destiny. You started the season 8-2 and lost in Gainesville to Florida. Like, what I'm saying? It is what it is at the end of the day. So, yes, a 16-team playoff, it's coming. It's 100% coming. Straight seeding will probably be the way. We know 15 of those spots, will belong to the P4, but one of those spots is certainly going to the group of 5 and the highest, qualifier of the group of 5 teams. So it is what it is. Coming up next into the news segment, EA Sports college football covers revealed. EA Sports has unveiled the covers for College Football 26, featuring Alabama's Ryan Williams and Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith on the standard edition. I really like that cover. It really reminded me of, I kind of showed my age yesterday talking about Florida State. I'll be showing my age again talking about this. But y'all remember the rap group, the Young Guns? They was on Rockefeller. For any of y'all who listen to rap, I don't know if y'all listen to rap, but they was on Rockefeller. The youngest in charge was kind of their thing with the Young Guns. And seeing Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith on the cover, both of them true sophomores, this upcoming season. Like, it just reminded me of the young guns, and they are really taking over the sport, with Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. So I love that. On the standard edition. On the deluxe edition, it includes a mix of current players, coaches, and former stars like Reggie Bush and Tim Tebow. So one of the things I paid attention to the cover, and one of the things that I didn't like in last year's game, that coaches weren't in the game. I think coaches are such a pivotal piece to the game, and it gives you that realism, and that's why I've always loved playing the college football game, even when it was called NCAA football. So the fact, and I think I saw a screenshot. I forgot what I said. I saw a screenshot of Ryan Day that's from the game, and it looked really good. So I was happy to see that. And notably, Texas quarterback Arch Manning declined the opportunity to be featured on the cover. We saw last year Arch Manning also declined, and then he ended up having like his own he's in the game type of thing. I'm not sure if he'll end up doing that this year, but that'll be terrible if he isn't in the game. So I hope they'll find a way to, and both sides work those out, whether he gets more money. Hell, he got the highest NIL valuation in the sport. So hey, they're gonna have to make it happen, man. $600 ain't gonna do it. Or what they up it to, like $1,000 this year? They ain't gonna do it. They're gonna have to pay that man some money. But if you want to use Texas, you're gonna want Arch Manning on that roster. And I know they'll have a placeholder, but they got to be careful with that, because of the Ed O'Bannon ruling. So Greg Sankey questions NCAA affiliation. I want to warn you guys, be careful what you see on Twitter and don't take it as face value. There's a lot of parody accounts on X, and sometimes you see things and people either, one, take things out of context, or two, they end up just lying, just flat out lying about something, and then you look at it, like sometimes I got to do my research. I'm like, okay, this look like CBS reporting, but this ain't CBS reporting, because it was said that SEC has left the NCAA. That's what it said. But he questions NCAA affiliation. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has revealed that in some within the conference are questioning SEC continued affiliation with the NCAA. While emphasizing the need for autonomy, Sankey stated that he does not have the authority to unilaterally depart from the NCAA. However, the SEC is seeking greater influence in decision-making processes, particularly concerning the transfer portal regulations and athlete eligibility. So it's interesting. I've heard this thing before that, hey, kind of like countries, where states were seceding from the Union, back before the Civil War happened. Imagine if Big Ten and SEC succeeded from the Union. They created their own college football league with just their teams, and there's enough teams where you can have a regular season and a playoff. It's 100% enough teams to do that. But if you do decide to succeed from the NCAA, you got to be careful, because you better make sure somebody is doing it with you, because you can't go solo dolo. That just won't work. There's not enough games, championship. How does that affect your television money? It's possible, but I believe you need another conference that is going to be willing to do that with you. It 100% has to be another conference to do it with you. Shout out to my boy Lever Weeze, my brother who commented in the comment section, man. Appreciate that. But yeah, you have to have another conference that is willing to do it with you. Is it realistic? Yes. I think there's a better way of doing it. You don't have to succeed from the NCAA, because then it brings... It gets really scary, because, we look at it from a college football perspective, and I don't know if Commissioner Sankey was just talking about purely from a college football perspective, or was he talking about an all sports perspective? Because then you look at, what happens, your teams can't compete in the March Madness. That's an NCAA sanctioned event. Like what happens, for the the college baseball World Series, softball World Series. What happens with all of that? So when we start using this verbiage, you can use it in a threatening manner to kind of get what you want from the NC2A. But I believe the ultimate solution to fixing a lot of our problems is we do need a governing body over the sport that has nothing to do with the television companies who are currently the commissioners of the sport, and who has nothing to do with the NCAA. It's a governing body. They're able to look at these things. We're able to properly sanction things. We're able to properly bring reform, and that is the proper way it's going to happen. I don't think succeeding from the NC2A is going to work well just because of the other sports. It's possible in football, because at the end of the day, people going to watch SEC football. And they still may watch SEC baseball or basketball, but March Madness, when everybody talk about March Madness and you hyping up your SEC basketball tournament, bro, we watching March Madness. 100% we watching March Madness. So you got to think about it from that perspective as well. Now, if you get other conferences that are willing to succeed from the NCAA and leave the NCAA, it's 100% possible. It's 100% doable. But now you got to, regulate everything. And if you thought that the SEC and Big Ten had power, now imagine the Big 12 or ACC leaving, the NCAA, and then, now Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are telling you what you're going to do and what you're going to accept. I don't think they'd be cool with that. I don't think they'd be cool with that at all. So I don't think it's possible, but we do need a governing body that's going to bring reform and that's going to help balance out the sport. We 100% need that. I promise you we do. So now we're going to get into our governor's ruling segment. And I really like this governor ruling segment. It is the 2024 biggest what-ifs. Let's examine the alternate reality of college football. I've always looked at college football as wholesale. You are what your record indicates. But sometimes that may not be the case. But if you have things happen for you in the opposite direction, now we're in kind of an alternate reality of college football, so to speak. Like what happens if, for something that's not in here, but let's say what happens if UNLV, that'd have been a good one to have in here, but if UNLV beat Boise State in the Mountain West Conference Championship last year, who gets that G5 qualifier spot for the college football playoff? It'd have been real interesting because Boise State wouldn't have been on fourth? Were they third or fourth? And they got that automatic bye. It certainly wouldn't have been them, right? I think we can all sit here at the table and agree and say that no, it definitely wouldn't have been Boise State. Would have UNLV gotten that spot? Or if, Army was able to win their conference championship, the AAC, would they have been in that spot? Or do you give it to UNLV? Or would Boise State still have been? So that's one of the examples for the 24 biggest what-ifs. So I'm going to give you guys some of my biggest what-ifs, and comment in the comment section, what are some of your biggest what-ifs of the 2024 season? We talked about Lane Kiffin a little bit earlier, and I'm going to admit, me and D-Now talked about this last night on Overreaction Monday. It was such a great show last night. We talked about it last night, and we were like, we both picked Ole Miss to win it all last year. Like, we looked at their roster. Yes, we saw what Ohio State was doing in Columbus. And, we saw that they went and got Will Howard out of the portal. They went and got Caleb Downs out of the portal. Went and got Julian Sayin. Like, they were willing to spend the money, and we saw that. But I really like what Ole Miss was doing. I really like that was the team I was most excited to use in college football 25. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So let's look at our top 9 what-ifs from the 2024 college football season. What if Ole Miss handles business versus Kentucky and Florida? When I look at the 2024 college football season, and when I make a prediction, I ultimately become a fan because, when we make takes, we want to be right. A lot of people won't admit it. We want to be right. Of course, we want to see a good game in the process, but at the same time, we want to be right. We want to be right. Y'all know we want to be right. Like, last year felt good being right about Kyle McCord. I thought Kyle McCord situation was mishandled in Ohio State. Now, it's easy for me to say that and then the opposition to say, well, we won a national championship with Will Howard. It was mishandled, whether you liked it or not. Kyle McCord should have been the guy over Devin Brown. It shouldn't have been as long drawn out as it was. And that can really hurt a person's confidence instead of just giving them the keys the way that you guys gave Will Howard the keys last year. I look at this Ole Miss team. Jackson Dart absolutely lit it up last year. Love that wide receiver core. Trey Harris was my dog. I looked at Walter Nolan, how they was able to attack the portal and get Princely Human Nealon. I'm like, this team is going to be really good. And this didn't pan out. But what if they handle business versus Kentucky and Florida? That means that Ole Miss would have been, 11-1 in the regular season? 2 slip-ups, though. They had one in Lexington and one in the Swamp that cost them a shot at immortality. Had Lane Kiffin's squad close these games, we are looking at a team that would have been in the college football playoff. Had they just won the Florida game, we're probably looking at a team that would have been in the college football playoff. They win both of these games, regardless of what happened in the SEC championship. We're looking at Ole Miss very differently. And depending where they will put at in this bracket, and this past season, I think they could have been on a run. I think they could have went on a run. They were that damn good. When we looked at Ole Miss and how they brutally beat Georgia down, that was the week I said, damn, I think I'm going to be right about Ole Miss because they look like the best team in college football right now. And I know Oregon was undefeated, but when I looked at them and I looked at how they beat down Georgia, I said, yes, this is 100% the best team in college football. I truly felt that way about them. It just didn't happen. Why it didn't happen, I don't know. Like, I look back at the Florida game, I always talk about this a lot because it's something that, always makes me think that I look at the sidelines, I see something that's going on with Jackson Dart. To this day, I don't know if he's injured. I don't know what's going on. At the time, they still had a chance to get a stop defensively and get the ball back. He was a little emotional on the sideline. Like I said, I don't know what was going on. But watching the game, it was something that bothered me. It really bothered me. And it bothered my boy Boomer as well, because it was something we was talking about in our CFB Nation chat. Like, yo, what was going on with Jackson Dart yesterday? So it was just one of those things. But if we look at that and we look at that game, I say, yo, they win one of those games, they're probably in the playoff. They win both of those games, they're definitely in the playoff. And I think that team was equipped to make a deep playoff run. I still believe that, even though they had those letdowns. But that's what playing in the SEC is like. So when we look at Greg Sankey and we get upset that they want these automatic qualifiers for the 16-team college football playoff, then you look at what Ole Miss had to go through, the tough schedule that they had to play, or the tough schedule that Florida had to play last season. And of course, there's no moral victories, but damn, year in and year out, if you're in the SEC, you're going to play a tough schedule and that you're going to have to earn your keep year in and year out. They win those games. This is definitely a different world and an alternate reality for sure. My second what if from the 2024 college football season. What if Boise State beat Oregon and went undefeated? How would this have mapped out things? Because they truly had a chance to beat Oregon. I forgot what week that was last season, but they had an opportunity to. And for me, it's not, what if as it pertained to the college football playoff, because they did their job and they made the college football playoff. But an undefeated season and a victory versus Oregon, I think would have made the Heisman race much more closer than it was. You look at what Ashton Jeanty done, like from a statistical perspective, it could have been argued that Ashton Jeanty should have won the Heisman last year. Granted, Travis Hunter was such a unicorn. It was something we never seen before. Not even in Charles Woodson, because Charles Woodson would come in and play certain packages and they would get him the ball and he was dangerous in a return game. But you talk about a guy who's playing majority of the snaps offensively, majority of the snaps defensively. We may never see that again. We'll see teams try it, but see it done at the level that Travis Hunter was able to do it. We may never see that again. We truly may never see that again. So I look at Boise State and I say, what happens if they won that Oregon game? They'd have had a 13-0 regular season. It would have been extremely difficult. They'd be like, yo, Oregon's only loss was to Boise State. We have to give Ashton Jeanty this Heisman Trophy. I think that's the type of conversations we would have been having. I think if we're being honest, right? So that's my second what if. My third what if. This is a big what if, because if it's one thing I can't stand in college football, I promise you, I can't stand the Lincoln Riley disrespect. And there's people that I respect that can't stand Lincoln Riley. And in some ways I get it. In other ways I just don't. I truly don't. But what if USC flips his 5 one-possession losses? I don't think we truly know how great of a season USC could have had last year. I was at one of those games where they were up. The offense really did their job. They were moving the ball against Maryland. The defense couldn't stop anybody. And Maryland won it. It was Maryland's homecoming game, and the fans stormed the field, and it was a crazy environment. But USC just had losses last year that, they had opportunities to win games. I think about the Penn State game. I think about the Maryland game as a game that they truly had an opportunity to win, but they didn't handle business. What if that was flipped? I look at Miller Moss last season. And we're going to talk about Miller Moss a little bit later when we do our Louisville breakdown. I look at Miller Moss, and he had, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and in many people's minds, he underwhelmed. But I don't know. I just don't think they was clicking on all cylinders, man. But the fact that, they had all of these one losses, I just think about, what if they went in reverse? Then would we be looking at a 7-6 team? You know what I'm saying? Like, week 3, 24-27 loss to Michigan. What happens if they win that? They had an opportunity to. Minnesota, 24-17. What happens if they win that? Penn State in overtime, 33-30. Really good game. USC was up early, and Penn State came storming back. Lost to Maryland, 28-29. I told you we was at that game in College Park. Phenomenal game. Washington lost 21-26. These are the games, people aren't talking about. 5 1 score lost games, man. That is crazy to me. That's crazy to me. So they would have certainly been in the college football playoff, and we'd be looking at Lane Kiffin. We'll be looking at Lincoln Riley differently. We'd be looking at Miller Moss differently. And we certainly will be looking at this USC team differently. I promise you, we 100% would. I guarantee you, we would have been looking at them differently. So, what if USC won some of those games that they lost by one score? Definitely would have been in the college football playoff. I can tell you that. Another what if. And now we're on our fourth one. What if Miami beat Syracuse in the ACC finale during rivalry week? That was a game we were credentialed for. That one loss kept Miami from the ACC championship. And that ticket got handed to Clemson. We remember Fran Brown, shouting out Dabo Swinney and saying, "You're welcome. Yeah, we're the reason why you're in the in the ACC championship and why you got an opportunity to play SMU. And if you win, you go to the college football playoff." That's exactly what happened. CFB Nation, we were at that game, boots on the ground from the field. It was cold that day too, but a damn good football game. We get a lot of access at a lot of games. We really do. We got major news. I guess I can announce it because D-Now's already announced it. CFB Nation will be doing an all access with the Toledo Rockets this summer during their fall camp. That'll be great. I can't wait for that. So we do get a lot of access, but the ACC, like I said, ACC always show love. That's why I always show love back to the ACC. But let's think about it. So what would have happened if Miami beat Syracuse and they face SMU in the championship? Now, if they lost to SMU, would they have been in the playoff? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure they would have been. But if they won, they're 100%. They're in the playoff. And how would you have liked Miami's chances in the playoff? That's a question I got to ask everybody, because we know at times their defense struggled, but Cam Ward and company was definitely able to put up points. We know that. We know that 100%. So, yes, my fourth what if is what happens if Miami beats Syracuse during rivalry week, ACC. How does that shape out everything? It's my fourth one. My fifth one. What if Georgia completes the comeback versus Alabama in week 5? We almost seen something scary happen last year. We almost seen something so scary happen. Like, I remember watching, as a matter of fact, that was one of the nights I went to the gym. And thank goodness the gym always had a college football game. So I was watching college football all day. Did a couple articles over at the CFBNation.com. Make sure you check that out. Your favorite G5, P4 teams. We talk FCS on there, Division 2, Division 3, HBCU, all of those articles. We did every article for every game last year at the P4 ranks and at the G5 ranks. So make sure y'all check out the CFBNation.com. So I remember it happened to be a week I was home. This week that will not be a thing. I'll probably have one by week. Other than that, I'm on the road because I'm not working this fall. But I remember watching this Georgia-Alabama game and, boom, went to go work out. PF had the game on. I was watching, I'm like, damn, Alabama beating the crap out of them. Ended up coming back home, watching the rest of that game, and ended up being the game. Like, Carson Beck played abysmal in the first half, and they began to turn it on. And then Georgia ended up getting a really big play late in that game, and they end up taking the lead. And I say, oh my God. And I just started thinking about everything like, yo, they gonna want Kalen DeBoer heads on a platter after this game. I promise you, it's gonna be bad. And then, of course, Ryan Williams, true freshman, makes one hell of a play. One of my favorite plays all of last season. And it really ruined something great because Georgia really was storming back. Really storming back. And I think that what happens if Alabama, after having that huge lead, loses that game, and the hate that would have been a rough week. That would have been worse than losing to Vandy, like Alabama did last year, or when they lost to Oklahoma. That would have been worse. To have that big of a lead and lose it at home in Tuscaloosa, that would have been a really rough week. So that's why I had to add that to my 2024 biggest what ifs. I don't think a lot of people realize that last season Texas A&M was just a game out of the SEC championship. I don't think people know it's a rivalry restored. We hadn't seen Texas A&M for so long. What if Texas A&M was able to defeat Texas and play in the SEC championship? And what happened if they was able to win the SEC championship? How many teams would the SEC gotten into the college football playoff? Would they have knocked anybody out? Would they have knocked a Georgia out? What if they have knocked a Texas out? Or could it have knocked Tennessee out? These are the questions that I ask. Like, it's such a thin line between winning and losing in college football. It's truly such a thin line. And I think we don't really see it that way, but it's truly a thin line. So a lot of the questions that I ask are just what if. Another question that I have, what if Nick Saban didn't retire? Right? You think about, before Nick Saban even announced the fact that he was retiring, there was a lot of players truly upset about that Michigan loss. There was a lot of people upset about the Michigan loss. They really were. And people were after the game announcing, yo, I'm entering the transfer portal. That's how upset they were at that Michigan loss in the college football playoff. They were really upset about it. Alabama definitely had a chance to win it. And what if Nick Saban didn't retire? What would have the 2024 offseason, heading into the 2024 season look like for Alabama? And how does that handle the 6 degrees of separation that is of the coaches carousel? Kalen DeBoer, does he stay in Seattle? Ryan Grubb stays in Seattle, but not with the Seahawks. Does he stay with the Huskies? How well does Washington fare year one in Big Ten play with Kalen DeBoer? Jeff Fish is still at Arizona. Does Arizona have the letdown season that they had this past season? Really interesting question. I don't know why my camera keep going out of focus, but what happens if Nick Saban didn't retire? Then what if, he isn't nominated for an Emmy? Did a great job. I feel like he added such I don't know, he added spice to College Game Day. He really did, and he added a certain amount of notoriety. That was the word I was looking for. He added a certain notoriety to the show because that he's been there, done that. He know what these coaches are going through. He know what these players are going through. So I feel like that's what he added. But what happened if he didn't retire? And does Caleb Downs and Julian stay in Tuscaloosa? That's another question that I have. How well does Alabama do? I would imagine that if their players stay like a Caleb Downs, that Alabama is certainly in a playoff, and are they making a deep playoff run if Nick Saban doesn't retire? How well does Arizona play in their first year in the Big 12? I'm sure they'll be a lot more prepared with Jeff Fish just because they're understanding the system and they don't lose some of the transfers like you normally have. That's just what the coaching carousel does, right? If we're being honest. That's another one. Number 8, we're almost finished with our what-if scenarios. What if Colorado beats Kansas and reaches the Big 12 title game? There was a game last season, and when I tell you there was a game last season that really pissed me the hell off, it was that Kansas game. That Kansas and Colorado game when Devin Neal arguably looked like the best running back in all of college football because they couldn't tackle him. That physicality of Kansas got to him, and I think there came a point in the season last year where Colorado controlled their own destiny. They went out, they're in the Big 12 championship. Granted, if they faced Arizona State in that Big 12 championship, I don't think there's no team beating Cam Skidmore in that game because he went off. 100% went off. But if somehow, some way, some shape, some form, Colorado defeats Kansas, Devin Neal doesn't go off the way that he went off. They defeat Kansas. They went out, playing the Big 12 championship against Arizona State or Iowa State. I forgot how the shaping of the conference went, but I do remember that at one point they controlled their own destiny. They played in that Big 12 championship and they found a way to win. Let's say they found a way to win. Can you guys imagine the fanfare of Colorado being in the college football playoff? The TV money now, they would have probably got their boots smoked. Either way, no matter who they played in round 1 in the college football playoff. But can you imagine what that would have been like? Think about how much hate Colorado received over the last 2 seasons. Whether you like it or not, it was hate. Was it justified sometimes? I don't think so. But in some people's minds, it was justified. They're too flashy. They're too this. They're too that. They're not humble enough. All of those things that we've heard about Colorado football over the last 2 seasons. But can you imagine what that college football would have been like leading up to that? Deion Sanders on ESPN, probably First Take all week, talk about I told y'all so. I told y'all what we was going to do, bruh. Can you imagine? It would have been so good for TV ratings if they had made it too. Can you imagine what it would have been like if Colorado handled business in Lawrence, Kansas versus Kansas? They'd have been able to stop the run and be in the college football playoff. That would have been crazy. I'm telling you. Like I said, I don't care who they played. I think they would have lost, depending on what side of the bracket they on, but that would have been interesting. I don't think they'd have got a... But they got a first round bye. They might have got a first round bye. But then that mean week 2 they'd have played Texas. Yeah, they'd have got their boot smoke. But anyway, it'd have been good for television. Really good for television. So my last what if is kind of a crazy what if. And you guys got to really go with me. And this is where we start to exist in that alternate reality that I like to talk about. What if Ohio State flips what happened at the end of the season last year? How would fans feel? So we all know that Michigan has beat Ohio State now 4 straight times. And or if I can tell you after rivalry week, after Michigan, and I called that, by the way, I was wrong about a lot last year, but I called Michigan defeating Ohio State last year. I just had that feeling. And what happens if, Michigan won a game 4 straight, they win this year, I'm telling you, X is going to break. And if you think I'm not watching all the madness on the artist formerly known as Twitter, I'm going to enjoy it. But what happens if instead Ohio State won a national championship? What if Ohio State beat the crap out of Michigan and won 2 or 3 games in the college football playoff? Would fans be okay with that? Or let's just say they won 2 games in the playoff or 1 or 2 games in the playoff. Would fans been okay with that? Are they equally okay with it now? Because we know that even though Ohio State won the national championship last year, there are still fans who are upset about how Ohio State's played in the game. And that the state that borders them still got bragging rights over them because of the game 4 years in a row. A game that Ohio State dominated for the better part of the 2000s. What if they beat Michigan but don't win a national championship? How are we looking at Ryan Day? Are we looking at Ryan Day the way we look at Ryan Day today, where the people who were down him got to absolutely shut up because he's a national champion? And you going to put that immediately after his name, Ryan Day, national champion. You can't take that away from him. You can never take that away from him. It is what it is. So those are my top 9 what ifs. Comment down in the comment section, whatever you watching this on, whether you watching it on my Twitter, CFB Nation's Twitter, or the Governor of College Football YouTube, at Governor of College Football if you're not subscribed to our YouTube. But what are your biggest what ifs of the 2024 season? I would love to hear some of these. That would be fantastic. We're going to pay some bills. We got an ad break. Bet US. You get 125% match on your first deposit using the code CFB Nation. I'm about to play the commercial in a second. We do have new sponsors coming. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It might be a bidding war. I mean, it feel like sign today. We might got to do a sign today at CFB Nation, man. I'm telling you, we got motion right now. Let's get into this ad break. Look at you out here using all these other sports books and you ain't even using the best one. Bet US. Get 125% match bonus when you use the promo code CFB Nation. Yeah, you heard me correctly. 125% match bonus on your first deposit using that code CFB Nation. We know that college football is in the off season, even though we don't celebrate that. CFB Nation, we do college football 24/7. But there are plenty of things for you guys to bet on.
Who will have the most wins? OKC Thunder or Cleveland Cavaliers? Can Luka and LeBron make it all mesh to make it to the play-in tournament? Maybe you're a college basketball guy ready to risk it all for Florida to make it to the big dance.
Basketball isn't for you? Maybe you're a football guy. Well, BetUS got you covered with this year's UEFA Championship. Can Liverpool or Barcelona win it all? Will Erling Haaland or Harry Kane lead their teams to victory?
May is going to get popping when the Kentucky Derby hits town. BetUS has you covered in that way too, with all major horse racing events. Point is, type in that promo code CFB Nation and go get that money.
I don't think there's a secret that I'm a huge Jeff Brom fan. I've really loved what he's done in his 2 years in Louisville. I think, what he's been able to get out of these teams. You think about what he was able to get out of that team year 1. And I've always talked about, I think year 1 as a coach heading to any program in this here era of college football, I believe that your goal is to win now and win later. And it's really year 1 is win now by any means. And that means it's probably more than likely what Moon likes to call the looting portal. But in a transfer portal, get the pieces that you need and be able to, teach them your system and be able to win. And what Jeff Brom has been able to do his first 2 years in Louisville should not go unnoticed. It shouldn't go unnoticed at all. So like I said, no secret, huge Jeff Brom fan. There's kind of this thing in CFB Nation, like some of our circles, like Jeff Brom is like a real no nonsense type of guy. And if Jalen, my co-host on College Football Showdown, we'll be live. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, we'll be live tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, and then of course I'll be live for Thursday's episode of Governor College Football. But whenever Jalen asks a question, he always asks the coach, and this is in the main auditorium. This ain't even in the breakout room at media days. He always asks the coach, "Hey, how you doing?" Most coaches say, "Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking." That coach speaks stuff. They chilling. Jeff Brom, the look that he gave Jalen last year, we laugh about it all the time. And we'll laugh about it this year. And one thing about Jalen's going to ask him again. He's going to ask him a question, but hey, how you doing today? Jeff Brom probably going to give him the death stare again. It's just one of those things that we always laughed about. Let's talk about this Louisville Cardinal team in my 2025 Louisville Outlook. I've been loving doing these team breakdowns. I got to get more of these uploaded. I told y'all I will split them between CFB Nation and my personal YouTube. I got to get these up there. Shout out to Moon. Moon already did the thumbnails. All the thumbnails are fire. I just got to get them uploaded. I'll get you guys one uploaded today. It probably end up being Penn State that I did a week ago. So let's talk about Louisville, man. Really good team, really good program. When I look at the ACC, to me, it's a two-horse race. I know other teams feel like it's more teams. I feel like it's a two-horse race. So Jeff Brom is truly building something in Louisville, Kentucky. And when you truly evaluate this team, I believe they're in the upper echelon of the ACC. And it's only in year 3 that they're in the upper echelon. You look at where Scott Satterfield had this team when he left versus what Jeff Brom, even though a lot of these are, Scott Satterfield's players, but what Jeff Brown's been able to yield out of these players in such, an early time during his tenure. And keep in mind, and I love what he said at ACC Media Days year 1. He said, we're back at home. When you're back at home, people are honest with you. He said, so we gotta perform, because if we don't, they're gonna tell us about ourselves, because we're back at home. I love that he said that year 1. So he started to get buy-in from me right then and there during ACC Media Days 2023, where he said they're gonna be honest with you. So that's one of the things we talked about. And just look at, what happened with this program since he's been there. So, team is very dangerous. They went 9-4 in 2024. That's 5-3 in the ACC. Offensive coordinator Brian Brown was cooking last year. Really cooking last year. And when you think about the fact that Tyler Shuck was the third quarterback taken off the board in this year's 2025 NFL draft, it's incredible. But you start to look at what did he do this past season? He produced. That's what happened. The Cardinals averaged 36.5 points per game, which was 9th best in the country. They've been able to put up points. They were able to do it in 2023. They were able to do it in 2024. The Cardinals allowed 24 points per game. That's a little high. That scares me a little bit. And then when you consider that they got a lot of moving pieces on the defense this year, it's a little scary. But that was 56 in the nation, about middle of the road, and you can kind of get away with that in the ACC. So let's talk about their roster construction. Louisville has a post-spring SP Plus rating of 24, which is really good. SP Plus is a rating system done by Bill Connolly that includes a myriad of different metrics. I really like it. It's something that Moon utilizes a lot, and we over here at CFB Nation utilize it a lot. And he also has another metric that we use a lot as well, which is called return on production. And they're only returning 58% of their production. But if you looked at this roster construction over the last few years, you'll see that Louisville gets active in a portal. There's pieces they try to get out of high school, but a lot of times they get really active in a portal. But I feel like they're also really selective about the pieces that they bring. I feel like most people hit portal for name, or most schools hit portals for names, like big name, let's go get them. I feel like they hit the portal and truly try to get puzzle pieces, almost like scheme fit, so to speak. I feel like that's Louisville's approach. I really think this kid can fit our scheme. We're going to grab him. This other kid probably has more potential, more talent, but this kid fits our scheme and what we like to do. We feel like he is coachable. Let's bring him in. I feel like that is Louisville's approach to their roster construction, 100%. And I believe that in this year 3 of the team, the most talented quarterback that they have had, yes, they had Jack Plummer 2023. We seen him had the best year of his career in Louisville. Tyler Shuck last year, his best year of his career in Louisville. And while both of those fellas did a phenomenal job during their time in Louisville, Kentucky, I believe that Miller Moss has more talent than both of those guys. A lot of people were going to be like, whoa, you're tripping. Tyler Shough was just the third quarterback taking an NFL draft. I get it. But based on the college football that I've seen, based on the production that I've seen out of Miller Moss versus the production that I've seen out of Jack Plummer prior to their time in Louisville, and the same thing with Tyler Shough prior to his time in Louisville, I believe Miller Moss has an immense amount of talent. I think he just got a raw deal at USC last year. Like, I truly believe that. But I believe he can light it up. I truly believe he can light it up. And he ended up being the scapegoat of last season for USC, but he did complete 65% of his passes, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. USC, we talked about it earlier in our What-If segment. USC had 5 one-possession game losses last year. And we could have been telling a different story for both USC and Miller Moss, as I mentioned earlier in our biggest What-If segment. Miller Moss is going to light up the ACC this year. I promise you. He's going. If Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley weren't in the ACC, he would be my pick for ACC Offensive Player of the Year. I believe in him that much. I believe in what Louisville doing. They're continuously trending in the right direction. That's when you know that the culture has been built. It's like that Luke Fickell culture that he was able to build in Cincinnati and that many of us thought he'll be able to build in Madison with the Badgers. And I believe that even though they got a really tough schedule, I believe that they'll be able to, fix what's been going on in Madison this season. But Jeff Brom is a culture builder. This Louisville team looks nothing like the Louisville team from 2022. Each year they have gotten better and they've been able to compete. So, and this year, they went from, being the hunted to the hunters. They're truly one of the big dogs of the ACC. And I think that Miller Moss is going to have a huge chip on the shoulder as well. I think he's going to remind a lot of people of 2023. Remember, like, it's college football 6 degrees of separation, man. 2023 when Caleb Williams set out the bowl game because he knew he was going to be the number 1 pick. The 2024 NFL draft, and he lit Louisville up for 6 touchdowns. That's what I think we're going to see this year at Louisville. I'm telling you. Let's talk about the backfield. Isaac Brown, hands down one of the best backs in college football. I think I recently had him ranked 3rd in my college football ranking that we did last night on Overreaction Monday. Averaged a whopping 7.1 yards per carry a season ago. Had 1,173 yards and 11 tutties last year. Louisville continues to strike gold at running back under Jeff Brom. They continue to do it. Look at what Jawad Jordan was able to do in 2023. You see it, and the silver lining is the fact that Brown did this with only 165 carries. I expect that number to be somewhere around 200 this upcoming season. His share should definitely go up. Also, here's the kicker. Duke Watson is arguably one of the best spell backs in all of America, which is crazy. Watson averaged 9 yards a carry, yeah. 9 yards per carry, 8.9, but I'm rounding it up. 9 yards per carry in college football. At the Power 4 level, 9 yards per carry last season on just 67 carries, 597 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a touchdown every 9 touches, bro. 7 touchdowns, 67 carries, 7 touchdowns, 67 carries, 597 yards. Touchdown every 9 carries. That's crazy. That's outer-worldly. Duke Watson, Isaac Brown. We start talking about running back duos and why, Penn State, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton get a lot of the hype. I prefer Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price over them. But I think 3rd, when we start looking at these running back rooms, you got to say Isaac Brown and Duke Watson is 3rd. And what they going to be able to do this year, they might be moving on up like George and Weezy, for sure. So when you look at this running back room, it's kind of like, looking at the past, like, back to the future, so to speak, right? This running back room is scary. And I think that Duke Watson and Isaac Brown can be better than Jawad Jordan and Isaac Garundo, who are both in the NFL, which is crazy. This running back room is loaded. And I'm telling you, they nice. This team is really good. Sneaky good wide receiver room in Louisville. We got Chris Bell, Colin Lacey, and Dakari Collins, who, all of them got a bunch of P4 level experience. Chris Bell had 43 catches last season, 717 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's like 17 yards a catch. Collins added another 24 catches, 313 yards, and 2 tutties last season. I think Akron transfer Bobby Golden will compete for reps as well. Tight end Nate Kursky, he should also get some pivotal playing time for the Cardinals as well this year. The offensive line is where I think we started to get some skepticism, but I throw it out the window because I believe in Richard Owens. Richard Owens is a phenomenal offensive line coach, and I'm surprised some of these bigger schools ain't went to go get him, because you seen what the production that he get out of his running backs, the production that this offensive line, offensive line got to block for the quarterback, they got to block for the running back. Richard Owens is a huge reason of why this unit is so good. So, and there's a few things that you know about his offensive line. One, they're going to be hog mollies. We talking 6'7", 6'6", 330. Hog mollies. Also, they're going to be in great shape. So in the fourth quarter, when your defensive line is tired, like Colorado's was tired versus Kansas last year, and Devin Neal was going crazy, and they running a rock, and they running backs are averaging 7 yards and 9 yards per carry respectively. This is why. It's this Richard Owens offensive line. They're putting in the work, and granted, it's retooled. A lot of their players are from the transfer portal, but I just told you guys earlier, Louisville doesn't attack the transfer portal like most schools. Now, they do use it more than the average school, but they use it more like a puzzle system. They're getting fits and scheme fits when they're going out and getting players versus going to go get big names. They're getting fits, scheme fits, players that make sense. Hey, this guy is undervalued. We think he'll play great in our system. Let's go get him. That's what they're doing. Richard Owens is the name to know in the college football space. Louisville's offensive lines perform, and they're going to maul you in the fourth quarter. I promise you. 6'6", 330, 6'7", 330. That's their offensive line. Fourth quarter, if they got a lead, say goodbye to the time of possession. Say goodbye to the ball, because they're going to run a ball. And there ain't nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Really like this, even though this offensive line is retooled, they did get some pieces out of the portal. Richard Owens is that constant. So I believe, even with new pieces on the offensive line, they'll figure it out, because he's going to put the work in 100%. A lot of moving pieces defensively as well for Ron English. Ron English has been one of those guys who's just been coaching football for a very long time. Really, really has. And their whole secondary are portal grabs. Whole secondary. But because they're selective and they get puzzle pieces, they get pieces that they deem that fit very well, I feel like that's why it works. They're very selective with their fits. But the heart and soul of this defense is senior linebacker TJ Quinn. Been a tackling machine both in 2024 and 2023, and it's like Ron English has a coach on the field, somebody he gonna be like, yo, what are you seeing from the field? This is what I'm seeing from the press box. How can we make these adjustments? When you got a guy like TJ Quinn in your linebacker room, you have a coach on the field. This is why I'm high on Louisville. Y'all hear me talk about teams and say, well, I'm high on this team, I'm not so high on this team. I don't mind explaining why I'm high on teams. So if you weren't high on Louisville and you watch this segment, you can say, okay, I think I'm getting where the governor is coming from. This team is 100% going to compete with Clemson in the ACC. They're going to, when I look at who are the best two teams in the ACC, you might get some people say, hey, Red Ashley and that team in Dallas is returning, Kevin Jennings at quarterback. They'll certainly be one of the best teams. I think Clemson is the overwhelming favorite. Clemson is one of the best teams in all of America. Forget the SEC. Forget the ACC. They're one of the best teams in all of America, not just the conference. They're the clear favorite in the ACC. But if I look at a team that could compete with them, it's 100% the Cardinals. So like we do with all of our breakdowns, we're going to do a schedule-by-schedule, game-by-game breakdown of their season. And I'm going to give you what I think their record is going to be, at least what I project their record to be. And at some point, I will have these converted over to shorts. So, week 1, Eastern Kentucky. That'll be a win. Great opening game, tune-up game. Let's figure out where we're at. Are we ahead of schedule? Are we on schedule? Are we behind schedule? Let's figure out that week 1. And a lot of these answers should have been already answered from the spring. You should have even more intel during fall camp. But week 1, you've been practicing against yourselves for so long. Go put hands and feet on another team. Should be an easy one for them. Week 2, this is a sneaky good game against James Madison. We seen James Madison put 70 points on UNC last year. So James Madison is certainly no slouch. Make no mistake about it. James Madison is no slouch. But I think Louisville wins this game. No slouch. It'll be a good game. Really good game. Oh yeah, did I mention that I think Louisville is probably the only team in America that plays 8 home games this season? I don't think I mentioned that. That's also another reason why I'm high on them. They only hit the road, 4 times? 4 times this year they hit the road. I think that's accurate. I think it's all ACC games, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, home versus Eastern Kentucky, home versus James Madison. They're playing Eddie George and Bowling Green on September 20th. Another home game. 3-0. Start out first 3 games at home. They start out 3-0. Week 4 at Pittsburgh. I went to a Pitt game last year, and they play at, I always call it Three River Stadium at Heinz Field. I think it's called like Acrisure, something like that stadium. And it's an NFL stadium. Most of the colleges we go to, most of their stadiums are on campus. But this, the Pitt plays, and Pitt is such a busy city, by the way. It took forever. Like, once you're in the immediate city, it takes forever to get to the stadium because of the traffic, especially during the night game. But Pitt showed out in the game that we went to last year. We went to the Syracuse and Pitt game. Shout out to the SIDs over there at Pitt. Showed us a lot of love. Welcomed us back anytime. It's going to be a tough road environment. And like I said, I saw Pitt beat a really good Syracuse team last year. We know that team will be ready, but I'm going to go with Louisville for the win. Louisville starts off the season 4-0. Guess where they go after that? Back home. Play UVA. UVA is rebuilding. Tony Elliott is probably coaching for his job this season. Louisville 5-0 at Miami in Coral Gables. Now, I'm not as high on Miami as everybody else is. And also, Miami, going to Miami isn't as tough as a road game as everybody thinks it is either. So, the fact that I'm not as high on Miami, even though Mario Cristobal has done the work, he's been able to recruit his tail off. It'll be interesting to see during fall camp where Carson Beck truly is as it pertains to his injury. Louisville wins that game October 17th in Coral Gables. Louisville 6-0. Home versus Boston College. Y'all see a theme. What? They 6-0 and only played 2 road games, bro. 6-0. October 25th versus Boston College. I think Boston College is going to be really good. One thing you know about a Bill O'Brien team, you saw the turnovers in 2023 with Boston College. With Jeff Hafley. And this is no shot at Jeff Hafley. I really thought Jeff Hafley was a great coach. And then you saw what Bill O'Brien in year 1 was able to do. That's what discipline brings to, hey, Thomas Castellanos, you had a lot of interceptions last year. You played crazy ball. I'm talking, when I say last year, I mean 2023. You played crazy ball last year. Let's take care of the ball. I don't want you scrambling as much this year. That's what we got out of Bill O'Brien's team. So Boston College will be ready for this game. But give me Louisville. Louisville is 7-0 at Virginia Tech. Y'all know I'm a Virginia Tech homer. November 1st, enter Sandman. That crowd is going to be rocking. Can you imagine if they make that a nighttime game at Virginia Tech? That'll be crazy. Undefeated team coming in here. Those fans are going to be ready. This team's going to be ready. I don't think there's a coach across America. Y'all know I'm a huge Shane Beamer fan. I really like what Brett Bielema is doing up there in Champaign. But Brent Pry, I have a lot of access to Brent Pry because of our relationship with Virginia Tech, because of our relationship with the ACC. And I know some people deem Brent Pry on the hot seat this year. I don't think he is. But, really, I'm a huge Brent Pry guy, man. So I wanted to pick Virginia Tech this game, but I just think that Louisville's coming this year. I promise you. So Louisville 8-0 after this game. That's crazy. Keep in mind, that's their 3rd road game. Home versus California. Week 9, November 8th. Win. Give me them. California's lost a lot of pieces this year. I don't think that surprises anyone. And then you got that November 14th game. Circle it. November 14th. We may be seeing an undefeated Clemson Tigers versus an undefeated Louisville Cardinals. Can you imagine the press that game is going to get? Because, we can look at every conference at this point. We may not have no other undefeated teams, but the fact that Clemson can possibly be undefeated this game or a one-loss team, or Louisville, depending on when you have them at this point, could be undefeated or a one-loss team, and that game is in Louisville, it'd be crazy. But I believe in Clemson. And I can't go against Clemson right now. Even though I like Louisville a lot. This will be Louisville's first loss. Louisville is now 9-1 on the season, even though it's at home. Y'all see, we got a constant thing. Louisville's playing at home a lot. November 22nd, they play SMU. It's in Dallas. It's a dangerous road trip. SMU is going to be ready for this game. Give me the Cardinals. They bounce back. They get a win. And then November 29th, during rivalry week, which is week 14 every season, we got them versus Kentucky. I believe in Jeff Brom. I believe in their offensive coordinator, Brian Brom. I liked him when he was a quarterback at Louisville. I believe in their offensive line coach and Richard Owens. I believe in Ron English, their defensive coordinator. I just believe in this team. I believe in their running back room. I believe in Miller Moss. I believe in their wide receiver room. I really like this team. And against this SEC team at home, they're going to want to make a statement. To play 8 home games and only got to travel 4 times this year, Imagine those fans, those season ticket holders. Yo, we get 8 games. Most teams get 6. Some teams are lucky enough to schedule 7 home games. They get 8 home games this year. 8 of them. So, rivalry week in the Ville. Give me Louisville. Louisville finishes the season 11-1, and I think they'll face Clemson in the ACC championship. I'm really big on Louisville this year. I know some people are confused on why I'm big on Louisville. I hope this segment truly helps you identify why I'm big on them. I try to break it down the best of my ability. Their running back room, they're able to run the ball. Hog Molly's up front. She'll be able to block. They got playmakers on the outside. You seen what Jeff Brom and Brian Baum have been able to get out of portal quarterbacks. Jack Plummer transfers from Cal. Boom, best season of his collegiate career, arguably. Tyler Shuck transfers from Texas Tech. Clearly the best season of his collegiate career. I think Miller Moss is on that same trajectory, and I think people are going to underestimate this team this year. Please do not underestimate this Louisville Cardinal team. I think they're incredible. Dang, the show over already? Goddamn. I tell you, man, this is the fastest hour in all of college football. I truly feel like that. I really love watching this show. Shout out to everybody who make this thing possible. Everybody behind the scenes who make this possible. My team over at CFB Nation. My dog Nino, my dog Moon, my dog D-Now, my dog Boomer. Yeah, my guy Mike, our director. My dog Andy, my dog SC. Everybody who make this thing happen, man. And everybody who support, you know what I'm saying, from, you know, my folks, you know, to our sponsors, to everybody. Shout out to everybody, man. My brothers, everybody from Lever Street. And the reason why I call myself Lever KT, aka the governor, and why you see this Merlin flag right here. Shout out to D-Now. D-Now got me this hat, by the way. Got a bunch of us hats like that. But yeah, it's been a fun episode. I love talking college football. We're live again tomorrow. Remember, we got 2 shows tomorrow. One, College Football Showdown, around 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then we also have Governor of College Football at 4 p.m. Not sure if we'll get to a Friday surprise episode, but, you know, if it's in the cards, it's in the cards. Don't forget, on Spotify, we release these video on demand. It's on Spotify. A lot of people don't know. On any other platform, it will be in the audio form of the show. But if you want to watch the video on demand, the preferred way is going on Spotify. So make sure you go on Spotify, search Governor College Football, give us a 5-star rating. All the episodes are on there. This episode, give me an hour. I have it uploaded and ready on there as well. So thank you to everybody, truly, who's making this thing happen. We're not going to stop, bro. We got a lot of things in the works for you guys. I promise you, we're going to give you guys top tier quality content. And I'm telling you, with the sponsors that are knocking on the door right now, we're going to be able to make a lot of things happen. A shout out to my boy D-Now, what he was able to get with this Toledo Rockets, CFB Nation All Access. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to go up to Ohio this summer and watch some Toledo Rockets football. So it'll be great. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in the sport that survive in the fans. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, I see you all at 4 p.m. tomorrow. You all take care. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
Great defensive
on
minds.
that.
They have to be better on that side of the ball.